utilizing not just the value of Bitcoin today, but utilizing the value of the potential value 4 years from today and bringing that forward. That's the financialization that I'm speaking about. And this, in my opinion, if I'm correct, will lead to a major repricing of Bitcoin, because the current price does not reflect that. It does not reflect this new era of financializing Bitcoin. And so a major repricing event has to happen. And I believe that the potential of that event happening in a very short window is very, very high. So as I mentioned in my last talk, you could wake up one day and Bitcoin's at 100, 800,000, a million too, like in a very short period of time. I know that we've had cycles, the last few cycles have been more commodity-based cycles, but this year, I believe we start a brand new era, and it's the era of financialization. The race for Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset has obviously already started. I do believe that some version of that actually gets announced in 2 days. I think that if President Trump fails to do this on day one, or at least in the first couple of days, I think that a lot of very disappointed Bitcoin donors will be in his ear. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that on day one, that is a version of the SBR is going to be announced. And it's possible if that happens, you could see a pump over $150,000 just like that. That's my opinion.
All right, I guess I have to follow that. That's super optimistic, and it would be absolutely awesome if that happens. I am just not as optimistic. Either I am just a less optimistic person in general, or I am just, reserving not to be disappointed, because even with Trump, look, he was great for the economy in his first 4 years. I know how that election went. A lot of people know I was there at the Capitol on January 6th, not inside the Capitol, but I was there. And which is why I'm able to sit here today and not be somewhere else. And but even during Trump's first 4 years, he did a lot of stupid things, a lot of bad things, and also he had very bad advisors. And I'm not very optimistic looking at what he's working with in this term going in. His advisors, some of them are good. The majority are absolutely terrible. They're as bad as the first go around. And I'm not expecting it. It would be great if it happens. But the probability, of course, that there is a surprise to the upside in the price of Bitcoin is higher. It is an asymmetric bet that something good is going to happen next week or the week after. But something as huge as a strategic reserve with Bitcoin, I will take the under on that. But that doesn't mean that Bitcoin's going to crash. I think there are good things. As I heard from the prior panel, I actually didn't know that there was consideration of allowing people to sell their real estate, go into Bitcoin, not take on capital gains. Because if that happens, it's going to be in reverse as well. So anyone that's been, sitting on their Bitcoin, not, hiding it for a while, waiting for something like this, now that person can go and buy real estate. And that's also super, super powerful. Yes, it will probably drop the price of Bitcoin, but the other way around, selling real estate for Bitcoin will make it go up. And I do think the economy will go up in general under Trump. We have a capitalist in office now for the U.S. Versus a communist. And that's always a plus for the economy. So I do think Bitcoin is going to do great, but I would love to have that surprise, but I'm a little bit pessimistic on that.
You willing to bet some Bitcoin?
So I've done a lot of public bets in my life. I like to bet high-end steak dinners.
All right, let's do that.
Well, and aside from all of that,
We'll see. We'll see.
the
You
poly
gotta
market
stay tuned.
odds for the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve to be passed in 2025 went up about 10% yesterday, from about 45-ish to a little over 60. So I guess my math is wrong on stage here, but
Wow.
about 15% yesterday. And then for it to happen on day one, the poly market odds are just above 40%. So I don't know how much weight you want to take into that.
My view is the first day, but I'd take like the first 3 days. But I believe the first day.
I think year three, if Republicans think they're gonna hold the Senate, I think it'll happen in year three. If they think they're gonna lose the House and the Senate, then probably in year two before the election. It's gonna be on the back end. He's got way bigger issues to deal with.
All right. Knut's going to stomp on all of us here.
If I may. So, yes, I prefer the dollar over the peso. I prefer a shitcoiner over a communist. So I prefer Trump over whatever her name is. But still, we have to call a spade a spade. I mean, all roads lead to Bitcoin, but there are roadblocks, and Trump coin is definitely a roadblock. Like, did you see the Clusterfuck Fest photos from yesterday from that crypto ball? It's all fucking bullshit. It's LARPing.
I agree.
This is not Bitcoin. This is fucking scammers doing their scammy things. And you may think this or that of it, and that Trump is good or bad for Bitcoin, and that all these other things are. But I think, truly in my heart, I believe they just confuse people. And a lot of people are going to get burned on Trump fucking meme coin. And it's going to take them 10 more years to fucking figure out what Bitcoin is. Crypto is the attack. Like, the reason I became a true believer in Bitcoin, or like decided to become this pilgrim spreading the skeptics version of the gospel, is because we won the block size wars, which was one battle in the greater war for human freedom. So we won the battle, but the war is still here, and we're going to have to prepare for the bigger war that is coming, which is like fucking shitcoiners trying to do their scams over and over again. We've seen this before. Tone, you've been here since forever. You saw Prime Coin. You saw all this name coin, all of that bullshit. You saw all the...
Those weren't even that bad.
Sorry?
Those weren't even that bad.
No, those weren't even that bad. It's just a fork of Bitcoin. But at the end of the day, resistance to replicability cannot be replicated. Like, it defeats the entire fucking purpose of the thing. Like, the only thing Bitcoin is an agreement of fixed set of rules, and the reason we agree on these specific rules is because they're more expensive to try to break than to just follow, which creates a thing that cannot be copied. Any copy of that defeats the entire purpose and confuses people. Fuck shitcoiners, fuck commies more, but fuck shitcoiners.
I get it. I'd like to comment on that. Okay. I get it. First of all, I'd like to say, I want this to be very clear that Knut is, please, thanks. Yes. Very much so, yes. Knut is one of my Bitcoin heroes. He had a very huge effect on my rabbit hole journey. And so I'd like to really thank you for that. That doesn't mean I always 100% agree with him, though. So I'll just say this, that I think that everything that Knut said is absolutely correct, but it is very hard to take the position that the United States proposing the hardest money humans have ever come in contact with as a strategic reserve a bad thing. Irrespective, perfect is not on the menu. We all understand this, right? Perfect is not on the menu. But this imperfect picture with Bitcoin, I would prefer, versus the imperfect picture without Bitcoin. And so to this 1% 100% this way or nothing is not where we are in the real world right now, in the adoption curve of Bitcoin right now. We have to accept the fact that Bitcoin is serving more today as a Trojan horse that is infiltrating the institutional space, that is infiltrating the financial banking sector, that is infiltrating countries, nation states. And these things that Bitcoin is infiltrating are far from perfect. All right? But Bitcoin inside of them has to be better than not inside of them. Because I believe that the ultimate occurrence, if Bitcoin gets inside of something, it's going to destroy it from the inside. All right? Not from the outside. That's just my take on it, guys.
So it's a Trojan tapeworm and not a Trojan horse.
Yeah, you bring up Trump coin, and I'm just really concerned that the global Bitcoin community might have invested in the first Haktua president. God forbid that happens. Can you imagine if that's what happens?
That's a good one.
One thing I've learned been in Bitcoin since 2015, is whatever I think is going to happen, the opposite is what's going to, it's the Costanza money, whatever you think is going to happen is the exact opposite. So for that reason, I try not to make any predictions. But I'm quite positive and bullish for a couple of reasons. First, I ran politically for Parliament in Canada 10 years ago in 2015. And at that point, if I told anybody that I held Bitcoin, that would have been automatic disqualification. Yet here we are 10 years later, where our politicians are tripping over themselves, trying to figure out how they can look best around Bitcoin. That is amazing trajectory for freedom. And that is a reason for all of us to have optimism for the future, despite the bumps in the road that will occur. In December a few weeks ago in December, I gave a talk. It wasn't a Bitcoin talk, but it was a geopolitical, national security talk, other things that I learned about while I was in politics. And the room was predominantly made up of Trump supporters, members of Mar-a-Lago, those sorts of people. And this was the night after Prime Minister Blackface was emasculated by Trump and said, you should be the 51st state. And in every talk I give, whether it's politically related or other areas that I'm aware of, I always try to infuse Bitcoin. I try to get it on people's radar just to get them to start thinking about it. And what was amazing about this experience was a number of high net worth people came up to me after my talk, asking me about Bitcoin. They know about Canada. They know about the freezing of the bank accounts. They saw me in my interviews saying, this is not just about middle income people or small business people, because look what happened to Abramovich in the UK. Whether you like his politics or not, they stole his football team and all his assets, and the guy was a multi-billionaire. So this affects all of us. That's why during the protest, I was talking not just to truckers and doing interviews and talking to Peterson or whatever. I was talking to hedge fund managers and teachers and doctors and professionals, because all of us are very concerned about the direction that the world was headed towards. I think we've crossed the Rubicon in terms of that future is no longer our guaranteed destiny, and that we can continue the trajectory we've just discovered a couple of years ago for greater freedom, and Bitcoin is a big part of that. I really don't care if Bitcoin's exchange rate is $150,000 towards the US dollar 3 months from now, a year. I don't care. You know why? Because the government can't touch it.
Right.
It can go down by 50%. The government can't touch it. It is yours. And for me, I think that's the number one sign of hope that we all should have for the future. And the secondary is, the speculation of the asset, if that makes sense. And maybe that's a little too woo-woo and optimistic and, all kumbaya for the future. But I really think that's the era that Bitcoin is ushering in for all of us.
I agree with that. May I? Okay. I am as Bitcoin maxi today as one can be. And I too truly despise many of the scams parading as an alternative money. Bitcoin has no competition on that front at all. And anything that claims for Bitcoin as money is nothing more than a scam. But what I've come to realize over the last 4 or 5 years is I've come to realize that these shitcoins, these altcoins, do serve a beneficial purpose. That they help you see Bitcoin's true value, its true nature. It's almost as if we can't truly appreciate light until we first experience darkness, right? And this special nature of Bitcoin is illuminated by this shit. How many of you actually dealt in that and then left it for just being Bitcoin only? How many? Right? So it helped you. It helped you see, right? It helped you understand it in a deeper way. So I think there's some value. I wish they didn't exist, but I think that's one of the benefits that they do serve. Now, yes, they do wreck a lot of people. And anything incorrect just sort of has that part attached to its nature. And there's nothing we can do about it. But I have seen it serve as a wake up to the true value of Bitcoin. The other thing I will say is that they can serve as a decoy. This might be a bit controversial, but I live in Colombia, and you have to be careful as far as your safety, but anywhere in the world for that matter, right? These criminals are becoming a lot more aware of Bitcoin, and that will increasingly become the case as the USD denominated price rises. And there are people who are demanding at gunpoint, open up your phone, show me your Bitcoin wallet or whatever. And if I were ever in a situation like that, guess what I would show them? All right. BSV as a decoy. And they'd look at it and say, well, this is not Bitcoin, this is BSV. You had the real Bitcoin. But I think they can serve as a decoy, which I think, guys, I will tell you, our safety is at risk as this continues its march to becoming the most valuable thing on planet Earth. We're only 6 spots away to being the most valuable thing on Earth. So it is going to become the most desirable thing on Earth. Right? And that puts an X on our back. We're up here on this stage. We all have X's on our back. I have to be conscious wherever I go because I am somewhat known as a Bitcoiner. And that is a real risk that will only go up over time. So if you are not in the space, obviously as an influencer or professional in any kind, you should really very careful about sharing your status as a Bitcoiner. Anyway, I was all over the place with that, but I just wanted to basically, I'm not a believer in these things, but I have used them in those 2 cases.
I feel like Knut's got a reply to that. So I'm going to toss it up to you. Do you have anything to rebuttal on what he was saying, that there's a place for potential shitcoins here as almost like all right, well, let's hear it?
Not so much a place for, I absolutely agree with that. Many of us went through the process of discovering I'm nice. I call them altcoins. Listen, I learned about DeFi. I learned how all that stuff worked, and I realized, okay, this is not Bitcoin. This is not for me. It's a casino, and I don't like going to the casino, so whatever. But because, you might have seen by my talk yesterday, I try not to be adversarial unnecessarily unless it's some shithead politician like Trudeau. But otherwise, let people do what they want. We're all free marketers. People want to gamble their money away. That's great. And this is why I pay dividends for me. Because I've taken this, I obviously don't like scammers, but because I've taken this non-adversarial approach to people running projects, whatever that means, I like you do you, I do me. Because of that, I was invited to speak at a crypto conference in Florida a year and a half ago. Really nice people. They're Bitcoiners. They started an online cloud thing. They have their own token, but Bitcoin is their primary thing. Whatever. I know. Canute's head's exploding. Hold on. Canute's head's exploding. I know. But hear me out. Because my approach is you do you, I do me, just don't scam people, they wanted me to come speak at their conference. Why? This is amazing. None of their users had Bitcoin. None of their users even knew what Bitcoin was. They came into the space because of NFTs. What the hell those are, right? So they said to me, listen, maybe you can be the one to come down, speak in the conference, and explain what you guys went through in Canada having your bank accounts frozen and why Bitcoin was the one thing that couldn't be blocked. And I said, sure, be my pleasure. So I went, I gave a talk for 45 minutes or so. And the next night at the dinner, like that little party afterwards, their CMO came up to me and he said, hey man, that was amazing. So what do you mean? He said, after your talk, everybody has been talking about Bitcoin, thinking, you know what? Maybe he's right. Maybe we should have Bitcoin as insurance. Maybe we shouldn't be so adversarial towards Bitcoiners. You do you, you do me, I do you, that sort of thing. Well, not that, but he picked up on that, right? But so because I did not take that adversarial approach, and I was open to you live your life the way you want to, but here's my message on how Bitcoin saved us. How Bitcoin is the one with the ETFs, even though many of us don't like this. How Bitcoin is going to be the reserve asset. Bitcoin has won, as George Gammon said. So now there's even less need to be adversarial towards people who want to spend their money in the casino. The only problem is the scammers, which is, I'll revert back to my hot Tua president comment. And by the way, I love Trump, but really disappointed to see that.
Yeah, and it reflects really badly, actually. I didn't want to interrupt Canute. When Trump at that event, I didn't see any pictures. I really didn't care. I was invited to that. I didn't even want to go. And because I knew it was going to be, annoying and frustrating. And it reflects badly because what people have to realize is when this fucks up and people lose money, it is going to make Bitcoin look terrible and bad. And it's what's been happening for the last 8-9 years with all of these shitcoins, is that when they blow up, they don't necessarily make Bitcoin look better, or because it just gives those that hated Bitcoin that are in politics more reason to hate Bitcoin. So no, I'm not really happy these things exist, but as a free market capitalist, I no longer care like I used to care. I used to have podcasts explaining why Ethereum was a scam from day one, and Ripple and the rest of them as well. And now I just, don't even bother that it's going to work out for Bitcoin eventually, because nothing else is decent. Nothing else matters. It's just that there's only one decentralized asset. I understand why it's decentralized. I can explain why and how it is decentralized. And anyone that, tells me, but what about this? I'm going to say, well, you can't explain what makes it decentralized. It's decentralized because some guy wrote it on a PDF and told you that it is. and he will not be able to explain why it isn't either. And that's why the rest of them are there. Like Ethereum is a lot closer to being Google stock than it is Bitcoin. Like there is that much closer of a similarity than it is to Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Okay. So, politicians, good or bad for Bitcoin? Let's rewind and take this from first principles. Like, politics is always going to be downstream of money. Like, back to the Rothschild quote, like, if give me control of a nation's money supply and I care not who makes its laws. This is true for every single head of state in every single country. Remember Trump's last time as president? He during that period, during 2021, during the Novid and the lockdowns, he $21 million were printed per Bitcoin mined. I did the math on this. It was about $7 trillion printed during 2021. And as long as that keeps happening, and it needs to keep happening because that's how that system functions, then there will always be more political interventionism, not less, regardless of who sits in the White House or any other. Like, it's not reducing the size of the state at all. Also, during Trump's last term, he gave out, what were the checks, like $1,000 for each American citizen?
Somehow mine didn't come in. I don't know.
No, I wonder why. But that is pure communism, and it's financed by pickpocketing everyone else on Earth by printing more dollars. Because what they're effectively doing by printing more dollars, since dollars can be exchanged for oil, is that they're taking everyone else's energy and effort. Like, if you're working in another country, getting paid in that currency in that country, you're financing the handouts to all the American citizens under Trump. This is why politics, and this is why it's so revolting to me to see Bitcoiners simping for politicians. Like, my favorite politician of all time, I only have like one or two that I really that I even like, but it's obviously
Piaget?
No, Javi. Well, okay, three then. But I would say Milei, and that's mostly because of his chainsaw and his sideburns, and that he quotes Rothbard all the time.
Oh man, we're gonna debate on that. I am not a fan of Malay at all.
No, I'm coming to that. He's not walking the walk, but I like the talk he's talking. But still, simping for him is also bullshit. Simping for Bukele is bullshit. Simping for any politician is bullshit. As long as as the fiat monetary system keeps going, it won't matter. There will be more interventionism. The giant funnel funneling your time and effort into the hands of the elites is still there. It's still functioning exactly as it has functioned since whenever we went off the gold standard or whatever. This is not ending by us simping for politicians. This ends when we start accepting Bitcoin for our goods and services and start fucking walking the walk.
Just to add to what you're discussing, being downstream. I mean, look, I was inside the process and the system. I saw how it worked. I know the entire lobby structure, the strategic management firms that are working in the UK, Australia, United States, Canada, how they get their politicians elected and stuff. And if I could talk an hour about it, and you probably wouldn't believe it, how gross it really is. So you're completely correct about that. But in terms of what's happening in the United States, sometimes you do meet one or two good people in the system, and they have one issue that's their issue of passion that they know the lobbyists can't control them around. And we have that right now. It's not Trump. It's Cynthia Lummis. And what's very big round of applause for Cynthia Lummis. And what's unique about her, and I've seen that with other politicians I know in Canada that have like their personal issue that they want it to be their legacy, is her story is very fascinating about when she was state treasurer in Wyoming, that she was desperately looking for years to find something that wasn't inflating away the state treasurer. And she finally, because of her son, I think it was, she finally, I think the second or third time around, dug deep into Bitcoin and finally got her head around it and realized, wow, this is the thing that can solve the one problem that I know I have domain over that can be my legacy. So will Trump make a strategic reserve the first day? I don't think so. I think he's got, I mean, I know some of the people around him. There's so many things they have to deal with in the first 100 days. But I think you look towards Cynthia Lummis. I think he's deferring that responsibility to her. And that's where the leadership is going to be in terms of the Bitcoin space. And once that gets passed, that's really her legacy. And she's going to do her best to try to sell it on our behalf to the rest of the world and other countries to do the same.
Well, I appreciate that. It's very good. Thank you. I don't know, guys. I guess I'm just an optimist at heart. And I believe that Bitcoin has the power to align all incentives. So when you put it inside of a system or inside of something with conflicting incentives, over time, I believe in its power to align all of those incentives. I believe that Bitcoin possesses the power to reclaim our governments, to radically alter the political landscape, to return back to that state of actually serving the people instead of being leeches on the people. I believe that if there is any hope whatsoever, it is Bitcoin that can reclaim and redeliver those things back to the people. And so I see it as I said, maybe this is a bad way of saying it, as an enema in the system, right?
Public enema number one.
That will clean out all the toxins. You know what I mean? I understand the view that it's outside of the system, but and this is very true. But it being completely divorced from the corrupt system, put in the corrupt system, and I believe potentially transform the corrupt system by making all incentives aligned. We all know that once you get Bitcoin, your incentives change. And I don't think that politicians are immune to that. I don't even think governmental systems are immune to that power that Bitcoin possesses. And so I'm a little more optimistic on that point.